Well, good morning. It's February the 11th, 2025, and straight from the highly caffeinated studio, this is According to Willie B., and I, Will Bryce, am your host for the next half hour. What vacation spot am I going to virtually take you to this week? It is none other than Carolina Beach. But before we jump in there, I'd be remiss if we didn't do our business highlight of the week. And that business shout out, spot award, highlight, whatever you want to call it, is Damp Good Barbecue. DAMPF Good Barbecue. They're over in Cary, North Carolina. But what they do is near and dear to my heart. And that is they do Texas style barbecue. That's right, brisket. Now, I grew up in Texas, born and raised, and I've told y'all that wherever you were born and raised, whatever geographical location your mom and daddy planted you in, that's the barbecue that you know and love. Everything outside of that is something else. We're just going to leave it at that. Because I get roasted when I talk bad about North Carolina barbecue, living in North Carolina. It's not that it's bad. I like brisket. But I digress. So you go over there and you see Nick and Bryce. They're at 6800 Good Hope Church Road in Cary, North Carolina. Their phone number is 847-387-7469, or you can go check them out on dampgoodbarbecue.com. They are a family-run business. They are a family Christian-run business, and they deserve this week's spot award, and we wish them all the success that they can possibly stand. You make sure that you tell them I sent you when you go over there, and if you have any leftovers, call me. Just call me. If you have leftovers, just call me. All right, we're going to go ahead and dive into this week's virtual travel, if you will. I'm going to take you on a little mental vacation. Lord knows we all need that from time to time. So, Carolina Beach. Now, I grew up in Texas, close to the coast. And so, yes, my beach to go to growing up was Galveston Beach. More on that later. But we had some friends come in from Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, and we were trying to decide whether to take them on a trip to the mountains in North Carolina or the beach area. And they both love the beach, so we decided to take them to the beach. So when they flew in traditional Will style, as I got out of the car to help them load their luggage into the back of the car, I started shouting, "No photographs, no autographs," and shoved them in the car, and off we went as they had bewilderment in their eyes from the back seat going, "What just happened?" But that's just to set the tone for our trip. And they have that kind of sense of humor, so it was a lot of fun. The one thing that I'll tell you, if you come visit me, I'm going to take you to my favorite places to eat. That is my way of showing how much you mean to me. And so the number one thing that I had to take them to go eat before we headed out on our road trip was red hot dogs. Now, if you're not from North Carolina, then you may not know what I'm talking about. If you are from North Carolina, you know exactly where I'm headed. Now, I have had, over the last 10 years, people point me in different directions, telling me, "Oh, go try this red hot dog. Go try this red hot dog." Well, first of all, they have to be Carolina Packers. I'm sorry, that's the only one that is worth eating, in my opinion. And again, this is an opinionated podcast, so there you go. So I took them to my favorite red hot dog place over in Clayton, North Carolina, and that is Jones's Cafe. I don't know what they do different from everybody else, but everything is just proportionate to it's heaven on a plate. And I don't describe very many things that way, but for a hot dog to be heaven on a plate, it's got to be good, right? So I don't know. It's the bun is perfect, the slaw, the chili, and you have to get everything. You can't just go, I only want ketchup, or I only want this. No, you have to get everything on there. And that's the only way to truly enjoy a Carolina Packer red hot dog here in North Carolina, and you come visit me, I'll take you and we'll go eat 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, and then we'll get you some as well. But, that was my one thing that I wanted to treat them to get their reaction on what they thought about red hot dogs, and they did. They enjoyed them. Probably not as much as I did, but, I digress. So we get on underway on our road trip to Carolina Beach. Now, I've been to Myrtle Beach, and I've been down to the area of Marshallburg, down that area, so I've seen North Carolina beaches. And every beach that I've seen so far has been very nice. Now, I say that because I grew up in Texas where I had access to Galveston Beach. I'm sorry, and I may hurt some feelings here, and it's okay because Galveston Beach, it's nasty. That's the only word I have for it. It's just nasty. It's I don't know. It's the bottom of the barrel when it comes to beaches. The beach is nasty. The water is nasty. Just the whole thing it's just, if you ever been there and you liked it, well, then there's only one thing I can tell you in the South, and that's bless your heart. But so I'm not going to keep hashing on Galveston Beach. I've said my piece and I'm going to leave it there. So we got down there to Carolina Beach, and one of my new fascinations, if you will, is boardwalks. I absolutely love boardwalks on the coast. We had went back to Atlantic City back in the summer, and they have a massive boardwalk down there. Naturally, it was pouring down rain when we went and cold, so I'm hopefully looking forward to remake that trip again this summer to experience the boardwalk. But I have since learned what my fascination is, if you will, with boardwalks. The boardwalks to me are like a time gone by, an era of the past. So it's nostalgic. And I've told you this before, and I stand by this. Anytime you can tie nostalgia to any experience, whether it be food or trip or whatever it is, anytime you can tie nostalgia to it, it just elevates that experience. And that's just my opinion, but that's what I get out of it. So it was your typical boardwalk. It had some carnival rides. It had a lot of shops, boutiques, restaurants, bars, dives, burgers and brews. I mean, you name it, they pretty much had it all. They had multiple ice cream shops, and I'll name two. And they were the only two that I experienced. So I'm not saying that the other ones aren't good because they had several, but the Squiggly's ice cream, where you can get different flavors of ice creams squiggled together, that's their term. And then there was Beach Bunny ice cream. And so, and that was really good. So I'm quite sure during the summer when it's hot, I'm quite sure every one of those ice cream places can barely hold their own. There was one other food that I want to mention, and it was your basically grab and go carnival type food, if you will. I would put it in that category, but it really wasn't. And if you're from North Carolina, you're going to be familiar with this, and that's Britt's Donuts, Britt. They kept telling me how great these donuts were. Again, I grew up in Texas. We cut our teeth on Shipley donuts, and I just think Shipley donuts are the only donuts that are worth eating. Again, my opinion. But when I bit into the Britt's donut, I noticed this looks very familiar. And it was so similar to the Shipley donut, it was almost uncanny. It was almost like they could be donut cousins. And I don't know if that's possible for donuts to be cousins, but I really believe they could be cousins. And so I really enjoyed that donut. I would love to go back down there and have, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, or 6 or 8 more of them. And not at one time. I mean, spread them out over an hour. But, they were very good. So that was something else. Britt's Donuts ranked right up there with the red hot dogs with me. So we continued to, work our way through we even went through the tourist shops like your souvenir shops, and all those things on the boardwalk. Just taking in the typical scenery of the day. Walked on the beach. The beach is very large, very nice, and that's one thing that I will say I did like about that beach. From somebody who's been to Jamaica 20 some odd times, the beaches in Jamaica are small. Even by Carolina standards, even 9 Mile Beach I would consider small compared to the beaches in North Carolina. Very nice, wide beach, very clean, very open. Water's clean. It's just a really nice experience. I would love to go back in the summertime and just enjoy a day actually on the beach. But it was kind of cold that day, so it really wasn't a good beach day per se. But we wanted to experience, we wanted to check it out, see what it was all about. There was another piece of nostalgia on the boardwalk, and that was the Ferris wheel. Now, this was an older Ferris wheel, and if you're scared of heights, I get it. But to get a view of the boardwalk, the ocean, the beach, et cetera, up there from the view in the Ferris wheel, that was really nice. And that again, it had a nostalgia tied to it, so it elevated that experience. So that Ferris wheel could have been falling apart, and it would have still been a great experience because for me, nostalgia was tied to it. So we enjoyed the rest of our day, checking out all the shops and everything around the Carolina Beach. And when it got time for dinner, we had searched on Google and found a place that was called Michael's Seafood. Now, for me, I grew up in an era where if you tied your reputation to something, you stake your reputation to it, so to speak, that meant you would stand behind it. And for me, when a business of any kind puts their name on the board out front, it means that you're not ashamed of what you're offering, that whether it's good, bad, or ugly, you're not ashamed of it. You're going to stand behind it. So it didn't seem touristy or cheesy in that way, because sometimes when you go into the tourist areas and you go into some restaurants and it's like, okay, it's more of a t-shirt shop and souvenir shop than it is a restaurant, and the food suffers because they're just out after the one hit wonder of the tourists coming through there. Michael's, on the other hand, was totally different. It wasn't a white tablecloth by any means, but it was in my opinion, a really nice establishment. Now, here's the thing. If I'm going to dine on the coast, I don't want a white tablecloth because I want to feel like I'm eating at the beach, not in a library. So we went to Michael's Seafood, but they had an extensive bar menu, and we wanted to be responsible. There was 4 of us, but we wanted to check out their bar menu. So we decided that we wouldn't drive, that we would take some sort of transportation, Uber, Lyft, etc., taxi. Come to find out, there was a taxi service that involved utilizing a golf cart. Now, this was a full-on licensed taxi cab, and I think the golf cart seated 6 or 8. So that was a really cool experience. The weather was nice enough to ride in that golf cart over to the restaurant, which took about a 5-minute ride. And so we were able to go enjoy the restaurant and then take that taxi cab, aka golf cart, back to our Airbnb. So Michael's restaurant. So one other thing I want to point out about this restaurant, there is an article hanging on the wall that talks about Michael McGowan. And he was a cystic fibrosis patient. Now, if you've never been in the restaurant business, then you may not understand what I'm about to say, but I'm going to try to paint you a picture. Having myself been not only in the restaurant business, design restaurants, own restaurants, etc., it takes every bit of brain matter and soul that you can pour into it just to survive. And the fact that this chef, was a cystic fibrosis patient and still started and ran a successful restaurant on top of that, is my hat is off. And I believe his wife Shelley is still running the restaurant to this day. Now, there's nothing, Michael's is not giving me anything to say all this. What I'm trying to get across here is that when I find a restaurant in a touristy area that sets itself apart so much from its food selection, its cleanliness, its service, its pricing. I mean, they hit all of the buttons for me, and it was definitely a wow experience. And so I'm going to, anytime I run into anybody, anytime I'm on social media, I'm going to give them a shout because they deserve it. That's a lot of their heart and soul poured into that restaurant, and they need all the accolades that they can get. So definitely my hat's off to them. So that was pretty much our first day. We didn't have a full day there in Carolina Beach the first day because we didn't get down there till late afternoon. We got up the next morning and went and had breakfast. There was a little mom and pop restaurant there, and that's where I'm going to go dine. 99% of the time is going to be a mom and pop because I feel like the money that you spend with them goes back to the local economy. But it was called Granny's Breakfast. They serve breakfast all day long, and it was good. We had to wait in line to get a table, but once we did, service was quick, food was great. It was priced accordingly to everything else in the area, so nothing seemed out of line. Now, some people will ask me, because I get messages on this all the time, and I mentioned something about a breakfast place, and they're like, why do you never get a wow experience at a breakfast place? So here I'm going to explain it one more time. Eggs are eggs, pancakes are pancakes. Don't get me wrong. Some pancakes are better than others. Some waffles or some bacon's better than the others. The only one time in my entire life that I ever had a wow experience at breakfast was back in Florida at the Clock Restaurant when they asked me if I wanted my bacon crispy. And that's the same thing as asking me if you want it's like a marriage proposal. So, to wow me on breakfast is just almost impossible because I'm sorry, there's just nothing there to really stand out. And if you know of a place that you want to correct that opinion of mine, you let me know. Send me an email, send me a message. I'll go check it out. Be glad to. And so we ate at Granny's Breakfast and checked out a little bit more of the Carolina Beach. And there was an area just off of Carolina Beach. It's called Carolina Lake. Now, what this is, it's a lake, but it's got a park associated with it, right on the edge of the lake. And they had a farmer's market, but it was just farmers items. It was local artisans, crafts, etc. And so that we probably spent a good 2 to 3 hours at that market, just walking around on the lake edge, enjoying the nice. I mean, it was sunshine. The weather was perfect. So that made for a really nice mid morning activity. But then we had to make it back because, like I said, it was kind of a quick trip. But we wanted to go check out Wilmington, North Carolina. Was basically, from a southern standpoint, is next door, which basically means a few miles down the road, if you will. There was a restaurant over there that we had seen online that we really wanted to check out. It was actually on the water because it's a floating barge, boat, whatever you want to call it. But it's an open air restaurant. It's covered, open air. But basically it's called Ann Bonnie, and basically you could go get your pirate on. But they had a really unique menu. I think their menu was they designed their menu for what they were trying to portray themselves as. I didn't think that they were trying to be something that they weren't. And I see that a lot, but I really feel like their menu was in line when I say their menu, their selection, their creativity was in line with what they were serving, what their intention was. And, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily call it a wow experience by any means, but Would I go back there? Yeah, absolutely. But the thing I'll tell you about Wilmington is there's a lot of other restaurants there that I would definitely like to check out. So it looks like I need to go back and spend a good full weekend there because there's a lot of food there that I need to go check out. And that's the thing about being a foodie is you want to go check out the food. I get people all the time and have for years tell me, "Oh, Will, go check out this restaurant. This place is absolutely phenomenal. Let me know what you think about it when you go eat there." Okay. So I go eat, I see them sometime later. "What did you think?" And then I have to hurt their feelings and it goes over like a fart in a diving helmet that I didn't find it as over the top or as exciting as they did. Sometimes it's really pretty brutal what I thought, what my opinion was of that restaurant. And I don't jump on social media and tear them apart. That's not my thing. If anything, I want to build them up. If there's like a major issue, then the thing I want to do is contact management directly and be, "Hey, I really liked your restaurant. Here's some experiences that I had. Just some feedback, take it for what you will. But, I'm not putting this on social media to drag you down because the restaurant business is hard enough as it is." But, we really enjoyed it. The food was good. It was a good time. There was a battleships off in the background, and we watched the skiers and different boats go up and down the canal. So that was really cool. And Wilmington has a lot of different shops and boutique type shops and stuff. So you could easily spend a full day in Wilmington. And I find that true about most small towns that you could spend a day or at least a half a day going in and out of the little local shops. And I have a question, and I would love for people to send me an email or send me a message, whatever. What is it when you go on vacation? What is it that you collect? Now, some people collect bumper stickers, some people collect t shirts. I have in the past, and I say past, uh, collected coffee mugs until they became where they're uncontrollable and I have no more room to put any. But my thing now to collect, and you may find this funny, but it's jelly. I love a good jar of jelly, and sometimes when you travel, you find some of the most odd and unusual jellies and jams, and so it's a souvenir that you get to bring back home and reflect on every time you eat it, but then it goes away. And when you buy a coffee mug or, a whatnot that has to be dusted, those usually wind up at Goodwill sooner or later. Am I right? So that's been, and I have found some really, matter of fact, one that I'm eating on now is a hot peach jam. And it's a peach jam that's got hot peppers in it, and it's really good. It's got that sweet heat to it, and you put that on a piece of toast with 4, 5, 8, 10 slices of bacon, and you got yourself a meal. But as we drove back, we still had one more meal to take them to or to experience while they were here. And we came back through Clayton one more time because that's where my other favorite is. Now, here again, we're going to do a North Carolina, Texas comparison. And anybody that's ever been to Texas, I promise you, will take my side on this. And that's Mexican food. I grew up in Texas, and I'm not a big Tex-Mex fan. That's not my thing. That to me, that's not Mexican food. I like a true taqueria style, m- uh, old homeschool recipe Mexican food. The Mexican food here in North Carolina, I'm just gonna say is different. The fajitas are not the same. Tortillas are not the same. It's just nothing's the same. It's not that it's always bad, but it's not what I grew up with. It's not from my geographical memory or my geographical food memory, if you will, if that's a thing. But there is one place and it's called Mezcalito and it's over in Clayton. I think they've got 2 or 3 different locations, but the one over in Clayton is my favorite, and their bar menu is absolutely ridiculous. And when I say ridiculous, look them up online because you'll spend 20 minutes looking at their bar menu. They've got drinks that 7, 8, 10 people could share, and I'd never seen that until there. But their drinks are highly decorated, from a lot of fresh fruits to you name it, candies. It's just ridiculous. You just have to check them out on the web and see the different pictures. But their Mexican food is really good. Now, it's not what I'm used to, but it is really good. And I know the owners there, and they do a really good job on Mexican food. They really set themselves apart, and sometimes that's kind of hard to do in some foods, and Mexican food is one of those. It's almost like the breakfast syndrome, if you will. It's like, how do I set myself apart? Selling tortillas, refried beans, rice, and ground meat. How do I set myself apart? I have the same exact ingredients, but to me, they've taken some different dishes, some very creative dishes, and set themselves apart. So to me, that I give them kudos on that to set yourself apart in an industry segment that is really difficult to succeed in. But that was pretty much our highlights of the Carolina Beach trip. I do have some pictures and stuff that I'll post on our social media. Don't forget that we just launched, I think 2 days ago, 3 days ago, our actual .com address. So you can go to www.accordingtowillieb.com and you can find all of our episodes right there in one place. That's also where you'll find upcoming information on the merch shop when it gets launched, hopefully March 1st. You'll have my fingers crossed on that one. But any upcoming events or anything that we're going to do, we'll put right there on that website. So it's really easy to find www.accordingtowillieb.com. But until I see you again next week, Tuesday at 9 a.m., you have a great week. Don't forget to caffeinate and conquer. And thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Maybe 2 minutes.